What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update. We are going to be talking about the managerial search. Jack Pickbrook has been talking. He says Tottenham manager process is still at the due diligence stage. They are currently doing their research on candidates before they start the interview process. And Ali Gold says that Tottenham are actively knocking down any suggestions or reports that they have a leading managerial candidate. There's a desperation to prevent any repeat of the 76 days in 2021 searching for a manager from that happening again. Doesn't seem like we're any steps away from avoiding that, though.
Exactly. We might like want to avoid it, but we're literally on the way to like there right now. That 72 day looks short compared to what we could be in for this season, to be honest. How
many days has it been so far?
So what, we sacked Conte in March. So it's been a month yet? I don't know if it's been a month. Maybe it's been a month. Probably has, actually. I'm not surprised. Look,
he got sacked 27th of March.
27th of March, so 3 weeks.
April, yeah.
3 weeks, about 21 days so far, about 50 to go to match the record. Look, I would have hoped that at this point, after 3 weeks, with him not with the club anymore, I would have hoped that we'd be further down the line than we already are. Still at the due diligence stage. I don't know how. I mean, look, I get it. It's a big decision. You want to get this one right. So I'm happy they're taking their time and making sure they get the right person. But I don't want to. But the problem is, last time, 2 years ago, they took so much time trying to pick the right person. All these people got away from us. Then all of a sudden we were scrambling for other options, and then these other options rejected us. And then all of a sudden we were left with our targets that we definitely didn't want. So we have to avoid that kind of situation again. And that means, I think, having someone in place either before the end of the season or very close when the season ends. I think we have to have picked a candidate and really gone for him, and hopefully he can be with a view of being here at the start of pre-season. So look, I understand it's a big deal, so I'm not going to start going crazy at the club who have not appointed a manager already. But what I'm saying is, the longer this goes on, everyone's already frustrated and angry. We're pretty much chucking away the end of the season now. We're pretty much just saying, look, we're not going to get top four, whatever. So I don't know what the point of these last 7 games are at this point. So if we're not going to get this managerial decision right, then what is all this wasted time for? I don't know, but we better get it right.
Yeah, we have to get it right, and we need to know by at least, I think, maximum maybe a week after the season finishes. We need to know who that manager is, and we need to start planning for the next season and for the transfer window, because obviously the longer it goes on, the less planning and preparation we can have for next season and the transfer window. So it's so vitally important to get this right as soon as possible as well. In terms of names, Mauricio Pochettino, we'll talk about once again, as Jack Pickbrook says that Pochettino is not under active consideration by Levy or Paratici, and there has been no direct contact with him about a return. So we've heard that we are still at the due diligence stage, and they're not even considering Pochettino.
Yeah, because I don't think you probably have to do your due diligence on Pochettino. You know about him, you know him very well as a person. So I guess from that point of view, it makes sense that they're not doing due diligence on him. But why he's not under active consideration? Look, they better have someone better lined up then, because he's obviously the best manager we've had in the Premier League era. He's still a top class manager in my opinion. But I guess the only thing you could say is, do the squad need new ideas instead of going back to old ideas which worked in the past? But but what did go, I guess that you could argue, did go stale at one point. But I would argue they went stale for other reasons other than Pochettino lose his tactics themselves not being good enough for top level football. I don't think that's the case. So
the case is the same as him as the same as every other manager. He didn't fail us, we failed him.
Yeah, essentially, that's what I would argue, and we should have given him the time. And I think that if anyone had earned that time as well, it was Pochettino. And we kind of, in a way, the way we just got rid of him was a bit of a betrayal of what he had achieved at Tottenham, in my opinion, in such a short space of time. So I think, look, I would love Pochettino back. Clearly, the fans would as well. Sounds like though we're not really interested in that. We're not under consideration.
Were there Pochettino chants again in the stadium on the weekend?
Muted, but yeah, there were at times for sure. So the fans starting to call for him. I don't know. I don't know why we're so against it. I guess I kind of do feel like this squad could do with a complete refresh and like some really fresh ideas from a completely new manager. So I understand that, but if that's not possible, like Poch, I think would be a very good appointment.
I just think it fits like a glove. I really think it does, and I get all these people being like, "Oh, I don't want him back under this current ownership," and yeah, that's fair enough. But I just think what we're trying to do, what we want to do, I just think it fits like a glove, and the players that we do have in this squad, the ones that we want to keep, I think can all work really well in the Pochettino system. So,
and also it's important to know that at the end of when we sat Mourinho at the end of that season, when Nuno got sacked from Wolves, we put out to pretty much for the press that we're not interested in Nuno. He's not even under consideration. He's not on our list. True. And then all of a sudden, what happens? We get desperate and we pretty much offered him the job because we had no one else.
Paratici came in and then he changed the list. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah, because we were going about to appoint Fonseca. But still, I'm just saying the club said we weren't interested and we ended up being interested in the end. Same with Conte, it failed and then we got desperate and we ended up appointing him. So I wouldn't completely rule out just on the basis of right now we're not considering him, but it does sound like we want to go in a different direction for the time being.
All right, let's move on and let's talk about player transfers. And let's start off with a Barcelona starlet, Ansu Fati. Sport are reporting that Barcelona have put rumoured Tottenham target Ansu Fati on the market as the club needs the income. And they go on to say that Tottenham are ready to spend a lot of money to sign Ansu Fati. They are prepared to make him their most ever expensive signing in history.
No chance.
Buying that one?
No, absolutely no chance. No chance. That's. I reckon the only way that happens is if we do a loan with an option to buy. And we get a year of him, see how good, like his real quality in up close is his and his mentality as well. So all these things are very important. And then maybe if it's an option to buy for a high fee, 50, 60, 70 million or something, and then you can think about breaking your transfer record if you're convinced after a year. But I can't see with the form he's had, his injuries of late, Spurs outlaying that kind of fee just up front without any kind of fallback. So I maybe if it's a loan with an option to buy, would consider it, and there's absolutely zero chance, in my opinion, we spend big money on him on a permanent deal.
On the just like try humour the audience here for a second. Let's say we are actually willing to put like a bid in like that for Ansu Fati. Would you want him at Spurs? Like, is he a player that still holds that weight that he had maybe a couple of years ago? Because a lot of people were talking about him a couple of years ago, but it's kind of gone quiet on him the last year.
Yeah, he's still so young, isn't he? He's still really, really young. So he's like really like early 20s, like 21 or 20. Like so when you talk about 2 years ago, this guy was a teenager and he burst onto the scene and it was like electric. And then he's had these injury problems, and obviously Barcelona have gone through a lot of upheaval. They signed loads of strikers in those positions, and so he has kind of hit the form that he had 2 years ago. I, for one, from what I saw of him when he was at top of his game, he had bags of ability, and I was like, he was one of the up and coming exciting superstars. I remember he was having a run where he was consistently like providing goal contributions for Barcelona at a young age, and this looked like he was going to be the next star. But it has kind of fallen flat for him at the moment. But not to say that, look, at this young age, I would definitely gamble on him. Not to say I'd gamble on him for a big fee, but like if we were to say get a loan with option to buy, I'll definitely take a look at that 100%. I would, because I think he's a quality player. But would I want to buy him permanently? I wouldn't. I think that's too much of a risk, and we've had too many kind of flops with big money to take that risk right now on that kind of player.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to sign him for big money, it would ring alarm bells to me, because I'll kind of think like, why is no bigger team going for him? Why do Barcelona not want to keep him if he's that good? And it might like ring a bit of shades of Giovanni Dos Santos as well when we signed him back then, because if you remember when we signed Giovanni Dos Santos, he was also one of the big up and coming things out of Barcelona.
Yeah, but I agree with you, but I also think you can get good deals out of these big clubs because they got such high turnover of players. I feel like a lot of good players actually do fall between the cracks. For example, Martin Odegaard, they got him for a relatively good fee from Real Madrid, and you could say, oh, if he was so good, why did Madrid not keep him? Well, it's because they didn't see how good he could be, and Arsenal did, and now look at him. So I think there are good deals you can get from these big clubs, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Let's move on. Let's talk about James Maddison again. Fabrizio Romano saying that that Tottenham will push to sign James Maddison once a new head coach has been appointed. Why not just push to sign him now then?
Well, because I guess they have to make sure the head coach wants him.
I know, I'm just playing.
It's just, it is with Spurs. Look, we've spoken about Maddison. The thing is with Maddison, he's actually, I feel like he's gone off the boil a bit because maybe then we'll change a manager and they're really struggling at the moment, Leicester, and I feel like he's trying, like he's been doing it all by himself this season, hasn't he? And I feel like there's only so much you can carry on your back before it starts to weigh on you, and maybe that's why his form has dipped. I'm a big fan of him. He's a quite kind of versatile, two-footed, good at set pieces, plays in between the lines. I don't think we have a player like him right now in the squad as well. He's completely unique to what we have, so I think it makes complete sense. He'll give us a bit more tactical versatility as well. Could be a good fee with 1 year left on his contract. I think definitely we should look in. The only downside is, two downsides. One of them, his injury record isn't amazing. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. He has had a couple of years where he struggled with injury. And he was an Arsenal fan when he was younger, very, very well documented. So didn't work out for Matt Doherty when he was here, when he was being an Arsenal fan, but I don't think it comes into it really.
No, I don't think it does. And when you're looking at Maddison and who else he could go to, there's obviously the Newcastle rumours there as well. Do you think Newcastle are above us in the pecking order now?
Definitely if they get CL football.
Yeah,
quite, and they can offer him more money. I think they would be ahead of us if we both came in for him. And also, if you're like, the only one thing we can offer, maybe to someone like ahead of like teams, I don't know, like Man City or Liverpool, whatever, is like if you achieve something with us, it would be like a massive achievement. You know what I mean? Like it would be like something like that would be remembered for a long time. But then Newcastle also have that because they haven't won a trophy in 50 years. So I just think Newcastle would be ahead of us right now. And if they get Champions League football this season, which looking likely for them, I can't see why he would pick. Well, I guess London. That's what we have. We have great. London over Newcastle.
We have London.
Well, you say great. Some players do. They do want to live in London.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's like more for like the players that come from abroad, like the shining lights of London, or maybe like the players that live in England already. But I guess it is a factor, albeit a very small one, in my opinion. But let's move on. Giorgio Mamardashvili, the Valencia goalkeeper, as Romano says that Mamardashvili is expected to leave Valencia in the summer as Tottenham and Chelsea are monitoring him. Again, we've spoken about him quite a bit over the last week or so. And I think that I've actually watched a few YouTube clips of him since then, and he does look like an absolute beast. Very tall, great shot stopper. Maybe can have a bit of work with playing out the back, but looks like a really top talent.
Well, at his age, he's got a lot of time on his side to develop into a top-class keeper. And I think it would be wrong to expect us to sign him and him be one of the best keepers in the league straight away. But if you're signing him as like a project for him to be your goalkeeper for the next 5-10 years, I think it could be a good move for us. And especially maybe you bring him in now, you have Hugo there for another year. I think obviously he probably comes in as number one, but he's under the tutelage of Hugo. Maybe Hugo can still have a few games. A bit like when Chelsea brought back Courtois, but they still had Cech there, so they're kind of balancing it for a bit before Courtois kind of became number one. So I think that could be a good thing. Just have Hugo there.
A bit like when we brought in Hugo, when we had Brad Friedel.
And we had Brad Friedel. Yeah. Kind of, exactly, where Brad Friedel kind of started off as number one, and then Hugo was naturally going to get there. So something similar to that maybe would be a good move.
All right, let's move on to the last story of the update, and that is regarding Eric Dier, as the Footy Insider are claiming that Tottenham are keen to soon finalise a new 3-year contract for Eric Dier.
How many years do you actually have on his contract right now?
I'll have a look, but what's your initial thoughts on that?
I mean, it's going to get, obviously a lot of people will be shitting on it, especially given the form he's been in this season. I think for one, when it comes to Eric Dier, at the beginning of the season, I was of the opinion that he's not...
End of next season.
Okay, so he'll go into his last year. I was of the opinion at the beginning of this season that, do I want him as my number one centre-back? No. Is he good enough to be our backup centre-back? Yes. But this season, he's completely dropped his standards in most games now. I can't, like, it's now becoming the default where he's having a poor game rather than a good game, and it's got to the stage, I think, for me, where I'm not even that comfortable him being our backup centre back. I'd rather get rid of him and just sign another one, to be honest, because as much as he showed last season under Conte, those 6 months, he can be a good player. I think this season he's really regressed again, and his leadership isn't as strong as it was during those 6 months. I think what really did it for me, to be honest, was that Leicester game where he was asked on those many occasions to be in one-on-one positions with players, and he just couldn't do it. And then we're talking about Iheanacho, like these aren't like the most amazing strikers, and he couldn't handle them whatsoever. And after that game, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I actually trust him at all now. Look, am I going to be like that distraught if he's back up centre back next season? I could deal with it, but if in a perfect world, I think I'll just get rid of him.
The way I look at it, the Eric Dier situation is no chance should we be offering him a contract. No chance in hell. I mean, the guy has done nothing to deserve a new 3-year contract at this football club. That's first and foremost. But when you're looking at the task we have in hand and how many players we actually need to sign, especially in that back line, I think it's just unrealistic, the amount that we need to sign in one window. It's just not going to happen. So the way I would like to see it play out is probably Eric Dier to be back up next season, and then for him to run out his contract, and then we replace him the summer after.
Always happens so often, though, doesn't it? When a player like Dier is running into his last year's contract, I see it so often, and players all the time, they up their game, don't they, when they're fighting for a contract, and then when a lot of the times they end up getting that contract, then they kind of go back to how they were playing before. I've seen it a few times.
Don't get blinded by the flashing lights, please.
So I think that probably is a good idea, to be honest. Just let him run down his contract, then if he can prove himself, deal with it then.
I don't even want that as an option. Prove yourself. I don't even want that as an option. I think we've had to endure too many years of Eric Dier now,
especially if we're going to go for a like the perfect manager for Dier, in my opinion, was probably someone like Conte, who played a back three. He could mask his flaws, play a bit more offensive system, so he gets a lot of cover. Well, like when you have a Nagelsmann or a Pochettino, there's no hiding when you're a defender. You have to be fast. You have to be able to deal with one-on-one situations, and you have to be brave.
And he learned that under Pochettino last time.
And he has to, and he just doesn't have those facets anymore, and especially as a centre back. So I think he would get a lot more exposed under a new manager than he is now under Conte.
Yeah,
or Stellini, whatever. Not Conte anymore, but
Conte,
you know,
Jose, Stellini, all the same. But no, that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comments section below if you have any thoughts regarding any of the news stories we've brought to you today. Thank you all for joining us. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.